Participate in the Board of Education in person, and those of you that are watching via live streaming on YouTube. We would like to remind anybody that will be addressing the board to please use the microphone and the podium to identify yourselves for the record. As a reminder, the link to the meeting is on the district webpage under the Board of Education. The streaming will run through the end of the meeting. In the event there is a disruption in the stream, I will pause the meeting until that is reestablished. As allowed by the Open Meetings Act, the district open meetings resolution, all of us will be participating in person and will not be using the telephone too. We're here, basically. Sorry about that. All right. For number 2, announcement of meetings. Dr. Kettler, would you please announce the meeting for us?
This meeting has been announced in accordance with the Open Meetings Resolution and is legally constituted meeting of the Los Lunas Schools Board of Education.
For the Pledge of Allegiance, I believe we have Mr. Carlos Tejas in the audience. If Mr. Tejas would come forward. He is from Los Lunas High School. And Dr. Kettler, while he's making his way up forward, can you go ahead and read a bio on Mr. Tejas?
Thank you, Madam President. The pledge leader tonight for tonight's meeting is Carlos Tejas, a student at Los Lunas High School and one of the Tigers' biggest supporters. When not busy in the classroom focusing on his studies, you can spot Carlos on the football field wearing his number 45 Tiger football jersey as he helps the team go through its pregame warmup. Carlos not only loves Tigers football, but he's a Dallas Cowboys fan as well. Carlos loves eating ramen, watching Barney on television, and playing outside with his brother. His love for animals, especially his 2 dogs, Peanut and Blaze, has motivated him to work in the field of animal healthcare as a veterinary assistant once he completes his education. Pink is Carlos's favorite color, and his favorite song is Rockstar. Now that's appropriate since Carlos has become a star of his own at LLHS. Please join Carlos and I as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. Take as much as you want.
And thank you for being part of this. Thank you very much. Let's thank Carlos again. Okay, that brings us to item number 4 of the agenda, which is approval of the agenda. Dr. Kettler, are there any changes or deletions to the agenda?
Madam President, I would like to recommend we move item number 10, Superintendent's Report, before item number 6, which is public comment. I would also recommend that we leave the numeration the same. We're just moving the order.
So I have a request to move item number 10 to what would be item number 6. Any issues with that, or from the board would like to make any changes to the agenda tonight? No,
Ms. Garcia,
go ahead, sir.
so I would just like to get legal opinion on whether we're allowed to vote on the agenda or not. Does last board meeting we were not?
I'll ask council to go to the podium.
Member Smith, Madam President, Superintendent Dr. Cutler, this is different than last week. The issue last week on the agenda had specifically to do with an item for which under the Governmental Conduct Act, you were prohibited from participating. The request to move on the agenda today has nothing to do with item number 9, which is once again on the agenda. And so I see no prohibition in terms of Member Smith or Member Hidon voting on the agenda in this instance.
So in reference to number 9, it states that I'm sorry, number 9 on this agenda, which was a different item on the previous 2 agendas, the 8th and the 22nd, I believe.
Correct.
And that item was the discussion procedure for due care for the reimbursement of legal fees for on the 8th. It didn't mention names. On the next board meeting, we mentioned my name because that's what they wanted. And then on this meeting, it doesn't even sound like the same agenda item. So is this the exact same agenda item? Because today it says on item number 9. And I just want clarification before I vote on the agenda. On item number 9, it states that this is a discussion and approval of requests for reimbursement of legal fees by board member Brian C. Smith and board member Eloy Hidon, removed from August 8th and 22nd, 2023 board meeting agendas. So in order to fairly vote on the agenda, since I'm allowed to at this time, I'm asking, is there any action that can be taken on item number 9? And if there is, what action is that?
Member Smith, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Cutler, in fairness to you, Member Smith, the item on the agenda today is not one that I am 100% sure what the action is. You will recall that in the former meeting, the action that was already on the agenda that I was going to speak about was first removed entirely and then removed to become an action item. I think that in order to understand what the proposed action is for this issue on this agenda, we would need to hear from members Bennett and member Vickers, as it was their determination that it become an action item.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So that being said, when do we get that clarification? At the item number, which we can't discuss, is that correct?
That's correct, when it becomes a discussion item.
Correct, but I'm not allowed to be involved in that discussion.
That is correct.
So when do I get clarification on the agenda?
I understand your complication, Member Smith. I cannot provide you the clarification that you are requesting. I didn't ask for it to be either a discussion item or an action item. I don't prepare the agenda. I understand your concern. I cannot provide the clarification that you are requesting at this time.
So that's all the questions I have for you. So thank you, ma'am, for clarifying that. So that being said, Madam President, on the 8th school board meeting, the agenda was referenced as being not very specific. There wasn't enough specificity in the item. And obviously I, as a board member who's voting on the agenda, do not understand what this is. So in my opinion, there's not enough specificity in item number 9 because I have no idea on how to vote on the agenda based on something I can't discuss. So I would like it to be more specific than what it is written right here. So I would like to make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented by Dr. Kettler and his staff with the rearranging of the order and removing item number 9 for lack of specificity till an item is presented on an agenda that is more specific, so I can be aware of what it is I am voting for as an agenda item.
All right, Mr. Smith, first of all, the reason the item has a different verbiage than what it did the prior 2 meetings was based off of a procedure that was going to be discussed and offered. Based off of what 2 board members have requested, it becoming a discussion and an approval of the request for reimbursement. That's why the language changed, but basically that's what it is. We're going to talk about it, and then if the board members choose to, that are allowed to make a decision that they want to vote, they're going to be allowed to make a vote. I think we have counsel present. They can guide us if there's some issues there, but I think it's pretty clear that it's going to be a discussion and approval of request for reimbursement of legal fees by the 2 board members mentioned by name. And so I think it's as clear as I can get it.
Understand. So on on May 17th, we got a letter from legal counsel's law firm outlining the procedure that was to take place.
Yes, sir.
And it outlined what the board's voting could possibly be. And whether to approve or disapprove it was not one of those stipulations.
It was just for discussion only.
It was for discussion only,
That was
according to the
correct.
letter on May 17th. So what I'm trying to do is make sure we don't take action on something we have no business taking action on. And the guidance we got from legal counsel on May 17th stated that. And if you want to clarify it for me, Ms. Santiago, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, go ahead. Ms. Santiago.
Madam President, Member Smith, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Kettler, I am concerned that this conversation is veering much into the area of the specifics of the item that should be discussed under item number 9 and not so much about the agenda. Again, I understand your concerns, Member Smith. I did hear Madam President very clearly say that we are discussing the same issue. It was changed, the phrasing was changed only because Members Bennett and Members Vickers have requested an action item. I would also caution that while law firms are engaged to provide recommendations and an analysis of legal terms and legal processes, this board as a whole is never required to follow the recommendations of any particular lawyer. They act as an independent body. Whether they choose to accept the legal recommendations or not is up to the body as a whole. And so to the extent, Member Smith, that you were referring to the research that was done by our office, specifically by Elena Gallegos, and was provided to each of you individually. Again, each of you individually don't act, you act as a board, and it is up to the board then to decide how to proceed. If you would like to hear as a board what our office has researched and what the law says, the only place, as I said in the prior meeting, the only place for that full discussion is if this matter actually remains on the agenda. If it comes off the agenda, we'd have to figure out another way either to put it on the agenda with language that everybody agrees to or not. But again, the simple fact that there is an attorney's opinion does not mean that this board has to follow it.
Understand, and thank you. And back to my point about specificity, this mentions absolutely nothing about discussion of the procedure.
Fair.
Therefore, in my opinion, it is not specific enough as to what item number 9 is going to entail. So I stand by my motion to approve the agenda as presented with the switching of order and the removal of this item until it's written in fairness to everyone on the board, because we had to deal with it being removed from an agenda that wasn't specific enough before, but in fairness to the board as a whole. And I think in order for everybody to understand what it is they are doing, we need to make sure that we have this as specific as possible. So therefore I stand by my motion to approve the agenda with those changes, with the exception of item number 9 needs to be removed until it is more specific and outlines exactly what's going to happen in item number 9, not only for myself, but for the general public. Madam
President, members of the board, Member Smith, normally not normally, but in the prior two meetings, you and Member Smith and Member Hedon were not allowed to vote on the agenda item specifically as it related to this issue, because it was an item that provided direct benefit to each of you.
Correct.
The same holds true today. The distinction being that the request is yours and Member Hedon's. So if you are asking for the request to be withdrawn at this time or removed or tabled at this time, it's your request.
I request that the item be removed from the agenda.
Madam President, members of the board, this is the request of Member Smith for the attorney fees to be paid. If he asks for it no longer to be considered, there is nothing that this board needs to do at this time.
So, Ms. Santiago, before you leave, I'm asking that it not be considered at this meeting. I'm not saying that I will not ask to bring it back, which is within my power to do so. Is that correct?
You always have the
Perfect.
ability to make
Thank
any
you.
requests.
Thank you.
Okay, so where we're at right now is I have a motion on the table to accept the agenda with two changes. The request made by the superintendent to move his portion up, and the request by Member Smith to remove discussion and approval of item 9. I need a second to that motion.
Point of order, are we voting on my request to remove it? That's
Yes,
just a done thing, correct?
well, the motion was, your motion was for both of those items. So to make the change here, plus to make the removal of your item, that's one motion. So I need a second to that motion and then a vote on that motion, which Mr. Smith can vote on that motion. And then, and Mr. Hedon. We see where that goes. So I have a motion to change the agenda with two items. Again, I can clarify it, moving up the superintendent's report and removing item number 9 from the agenda. Do I get a second?
I'll second it.
So I got the motion by Smith and I got a second by Hedon. Do any other board members want to discuss that, or do we want to call for the vote?
We do need some discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hedon.
President, members of the board, Ms. Santiago. We received direction from your law firm. And we've done everything trying to stay within our parameter.
And Mr. Hedon, I'm gonna stop there and I'm gonna let Ms. Santiago get up there, but again,
So
we're on a very,
I understand we're in that fine line, and I'm gonna be careful. But nowhere in that statute have we gone outside the lines on this. I know that. But we've been very patient since May, trying to get this done, and there's been games being played. That's fine. I get it. It reflects of what they've done the last 2 years, and that's cool. But nowhere in that letter from Alana Gallegos said approval. And that was state statute. That's fine.
Member Hedon, Madam President, members of the board, again, legal counsel can give advice until we're blue in the face. Nothing requires this board to accept it. That is true of the information that you receive from our office. I will remind you, however, Member Hedon, that the request to remove it from today's agenda came from Member Smith.
And I second it, okay? But the letter came from you, from your office, I'm sorry, from your office, and not once did it say approval. And it reflected state statute.
Again, I'm not going, Member Hedon, Madam President, Dr. Kettler, with all due respect, Member Hedon, I'm not going to discuss the specifics of the legal advice that we provided. That is for the discussion that would occur should this matter ever remain on the agenda, which it has not remained on the agenda for 3 meetings in a row.
so I'm gonna go back to trying to get us on line. Again, board members can request it to be removed. They can request it to be changed, and they can request for the verbiage to change. I have done what I've been asked to do by 2 board members, and this is what I've done. So now we have a motion and we can change it again if this is what the board so desires. But for right now, I need to call for the vote as to whether or not item 9 is going to be removed and whether or not the superintendent's report will be moved up. I don't want to get us into an area of discussing things that a couple of board members might not be able to discuss. So I think we're on a fine line here.
Ms. Garcia, I appreciate everything you're doing, but I was to understand that if I asked for it to be on the agenda and I asked to have it removed, it was removed. Is that not what legally happens? I just
And
want
again, I
to make sure.
Smith, that's by vote of the whole board. We get to vote on it.
Madam President, members of the board, this is the agenda approval item. So there is a vote required on the approval of the agenda. Assuming that the item remains on the agenda, when the item comes up for discussion, there is no item to discuss because the request has been removed at that point.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
At this time, I'm going to withdraw my second.
So then that goes back to Mr. Smith. You're staying with your motion, sir?
Yes, I'm staying with my motion to approve the agenda with the changes and remove item number 9.
Do I get a second on Mr. Smith's motion? Okay, not hearing a second, the motion will die. Now I need another motion for the agenda.
To approve the agenda as Dr. Kettler requested, and moving 10 to 6.
So I have a motion by Mr. Bennett to approve the agenda as is, moving superintendent's report up the agenda to after public comment, correct? Before public, excuse me, correct?
Yes.
So I got a motion by Mr. Bennett. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Vickers will second that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. Mr. Hedon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, how do you vote?
Nope.
And I'm going to vote yes. Agenda is approved. As announced and posted in accordance with the New Mexico Open Meetings Act and Las Lunas Board of Education's Open Meetings Resolution, a quorum of the Las Lunas Board of Education participated in a closed executive session. A closed executive session was held on August 22nd, 2023 at 5:00 p.m. The discussion of attorney-client privilege matters regarding updates pertaining to threatened and/or pending litigation. Specifically, discussion of legal counsel regarding the pending of threatened litigation involving students, staff, and OCR complaints. This is all pursuant to 1015(1)(h)(7) of the Open Meetings Act. A quorum was in attendance. That moves us to public comment. Nope, that's going to move us up to the superintendent's report. Thank you, Dr. Kettler. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Madam President, members of the board, Mia Ryan Carabajal Hartog is the student representative for Los Lunas High School. Mia is a senior at LLHS and has been attending Los Lunas schools since 8th grade when she moved here from Gallup, New Mexico. Mia lives at home with her parents, Jeff and Paula, her brother Hank, and Chico, her dog. Mia is currently ranked 3rd in her class with a GPA of 4.2 and is the senior class vice president and a member of student council. Mia is a fierce competitor and is a captain of the girls soccer team and earned first team all district and second team all state last year. She is also a member of the LLHS wrestling team and looks forward to competing in hopes of returning to state and making it onto the podium. In addition, she also runs track and will participate this spring. Mia has grown up loving and performing arts and uses that passion as a proud member of the Tiger cheer team. Has anyone seen the mascot dance? Mia is a member of National Honor Society, where she serves as the historian. She is employed as a student mentor for the Los Lunas Schools Special Services Department. In her free time, she volunteers at Presbyterian Hospital, reading to babies in the neonatal intensive care unit. Mia's future plans include going to college, hopefully at West Point or the United States Coast Guard Academy. She plans to major in the field of, in the medical field, becoming a physician or a physical therapist. Her dream would be to open her own clinic in New Mexico, where she would practice medicine as well as holistic healing with other practices like yoga and massage therapy. Mia embodies the spirit of a tiger. She is kind, hardworking, dedicated, and relentless. When she wants something, she goes out and does her best to go out and get it. At this time, I would like to invite already at the podium, Mia Ryan Carvajal Hartog.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Kettler, my bad. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you about. My name is Mia Carvajal Hartog, and I'm a student athlete, a senior, a creator, and a friend from Los Lunas High School. If you're wondering what was happening at Los Lunas High School, which you should because we're super cool and are doing great things, I'm going to give you a rundown. I'm going to start from the beginning. Now, to be honest, I was a little fretful going into the school year, one, because the idea of my high school career coming to an end and the idea of making life-altering decisions was not far from terrifying. And number two, because of the new assistant principal, AKA Jeffrey Hartog, AKA my father. So yeah, there was a bit of pressure. Now, my dad recruited me to help him set up his big boy office at the high school. And the moment I knew that this year was going to be different and better from the others was my first real conversation that I had with the new head principal, Mr. Tiger. First of all, his last name is Tiger. Come on. He was made for Los Lunas High. But Mr. Tiger has a bright and booming personality, and he did not hesitate to communicate the idea of improving school spirit. And finishing this first grading period, I can guarantee you that it has already grown tenfold. Some examples would be HOCO Spirit Week. I had never seen so many little freshmen wear their assigned colors for the pep rally. I had never seen so many of my peers lose their pride and dress up, period. Heck, I witnessed my principal in a mullet wig. I witnessed a video of a teacher doing somersaults on the gym floor at the pep rally, and a crazy amount of people volunteering to be in competition for the spirit stick. And as a senior, I am 100% responsible for letting you know that we won said spirit stick. But I believe that the faculty and new admin is playing a huge role in this effort to practically change our culture to a proud one. NHS sponsor, Jonelle Thompson Armijo, helped coordinate the first annual Paint Your Parking Spot for seniors. The amount of color and creativity I saw in that parking lot this past Sunday was beautiful. My class council sponsor, Jesse Moya, has arranged for the senior sunrise on the 22nd, where I hear there will be burritos. Woo, yeah. Andrea Tenorio and Chris Garcia, sponsors of student council, did not fail to deliver an outstanding homecoming. They did not even falter when they had to completely move the homecoming location due to weather conditions. From what I hear, all the students who went had a blast dancing to Pitbull. The reason I say, from what I hear, is because I didn't make it to my senior homecoming. My homecoming was spent winning a championship game at Aztec soccer tournament. I might be a little biased, but this was one of my favorite homecomings, and my soccer team is 5-0. To continue talking about sports, the volleyball team is 4-1 and recently came in second at the Las Cruces volleyball tournament. Oh, and I cannot forget to mention how they smacked Cleveland not once, but twice. Boys soccer has unfortunately faced a number of injuries, but continues to compete with unwavering efforts. Cross country is doing their daunting run of things and killing the courses at Valencia and Hemis. The football team's record is 3-1. They continue to work hard, not only on the field, but in the classroom, following their motto, elevate. Some of my closest friends are football players, and they're some of the nicest people that you will ever meet. Speaking of football, has anyone in the room been to a game recently? Well, if you have, you've probably noticed our dance and cheer teams killing it. There's also a mascot, killing not only sweet dance moves, but the hearts of all his adored fans. FYI, I'm the mascot. The environment is also changing in the classroom as we work with new and progressive technology. One very personal experience with the amazing growth is through the student mentorship program. And if you don't know what the student mentorship program is, this is when high school students go out and help students throughout the district to help students with special needs. I am a mentor and my mentee is in the class film and digital media with me. I've been able to observe the opportunity he has through the videos we make together and how he expresses himself. He's a character. He's a personality. He's a flirt. I am so happy that I got this opportunity to understand and befriend someone some people wouldn't really be ready to get to know on a deeper level. We also have some pretty cool stuff planned for the future. There's going to be a college tailgate party where colleges will show up to recruit the best that Los Lunas has to offer. We are also partnering up with an organization called Young Blood to bring one of the biggest trade fairs that Valencia County has ever seen right here to Los Lunas High School. We will invite students from Valencia, Century, and Berlin high schools to join LLHS students. To come and see the variety of different trades and career opportunities that are available to hardworking high school graduates. The year has just begun. There's much to learn, much to experience, much to conquer, pass, and graduate. But the teachers and administrators only enhance the excitement and joy that I feel I'm going to have this year as a student, athlete, and mentor. So now I'm going to finish with a video created by my mentee and I. So don't forget to peep our principals at the end of the video. Thank you so much for having me.
I think we're gonna have a few questions, so just in case. All right, go ahead, Mr. Smith.
So, based on your presentation, first of all, you have a fully impressive plate, but based on your presentation and all of your accomplishments, wrestling, soccer, NHS, being the mascot, being ranked third at the high school, and all of the dreams you have, I find it very difficult to believe that Fairfield is anywhere in your vocabulary. And I got to tell you, during your whole presentation, you looked pretty nervous. So I think that you're amazing, and you are definitely what Los Lunas hopes to school district day in and day out. And you represent Los Lunas High School and this district very, very well. So thank you.
Yes, Matt. Yeah, I just want to thank you. It was a great presentation. This is the first time we ever got a video, which was nice to see what these guys really do at school. But I wish you the best, and just remember, go Coast Guard.
So in Dr. Keller's introduction, after talking about all the things you do, and then he said, in your free time, I'm not sure where that is. Where in the world do you find free time? Just a comment, but I do agree with the Coast Guard thing. I think that's a great choice. If I had to do it over again, I'd join the Coast Guard instead of the Air Force. So.
All right, so,
Well, you set that bar for those students and student athletes on that. I mean, they can do half of what you do. We're in great shape. Good job.
and I would just like to add that I'm floored by your public speaking. I think you're amazing. I love the positive attitude, very uplifting. Coast Guard's got a lot to be prepared for, knowing you're coming down the pike. But I hope you look into, your future as, I don't know, a political leader, maybe an activist of some sort. You just really enlighten the room and I appreciate you. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so now I believe Dr. Kettler is still giving us his presentation. Go ahead, sir.
Madam President, members of the board, at this time, I would like to invite Mr. Eric Tiger, principal at Los Lunas High School, to the podium.
Madam President, members of the Los Lunas School Board of Education, Superintendent Kettler, thank you for the opportunity to speak about Los Lunas High School tonight. I'm going to introduce my amazing staff in the order that they will be presenting tonight. I'm going to introduce them, then I'm going to step aside and let them talk about the great things that are happening at Los Lunas High School. First of all, we have Miss Marcia Hubble Espinoza. We have Miss Jennifer Garland and Mr. Jeff Hartog.
Good evening, school board members, Madam President, Dr. Kettler. Second slide, please. So at Los Lunas High School, one of the things that we are working on as an admin team with our staff and to provide a quality education for our students is embracing and fostering and working with our staff to create to offer a robust, rigorous, and complete curriculum at their grade level. One of the things that we're working on right now is challenging our teachers to use visual modeling in the classroom. And with that, teachers are able to work in PLCs and align lessons to a rigorous framework. We do have a robust repertoire of curriculum in this district that our teachers are very fortunate to pick and choose from. Walkthroughs is something that we're focused on as an administrative team and providing face-to-face feedback sessions to our teachers. When we talk about walkthroughs and we talk about allowing every student or providing every student an engaging classroom experience and world-class instruction and materials to support the learning. As administrators, we are conducting walkthroughs. Our goal is at least once to twice a week. We are assuring that grade level standards are posted and that their learning targets are posted. And we are assuring that there's alignment between the learning targets and the state standards. As administrators, we are dedicated to being present in our PLCs, assuring alignment of materials and standards and assuring that our teachers and educators are engaging in some rigorous conversation around instruction.
Every student deserves to use technology as a tool for learning and a tool to express their learning in creative ways. Teachers are implementing in through their lessons to educate students using technology. Here you see in the first picture, you see our students implementing the GoPro to film a public service announcement. And it's regarding school safety and the importance of wearing our school IDs. Some of those videos will then be uploaded onto the class YouTube page. The second shows the use of the green screen. For many of you, the green screen will allow students to create a place such as a camping spot, and they can reenact like they're actually camping through the technology pieces of it. The next one we have up there is a discussion Jamboard. Students are able to collaborate on different topics and are able to add information for all students to access. Kind of what Mia kind of explained earlier. This is how we're incorporating our technology into our classroom. At Los Lunas High School, every student deserves to have the opportunity to learn multiple languages just as their global peers.
We are happy to say that we offer Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 dual credit through UNM Valencia campus, and our numbers have significantly increased. We also offer Spanish 1, 2, 3, AP Spanish Language and Culture, AP Spanish Literature, and Spanish for Spanish speakers 1 and 2. This year, we're also working on approximately 8 students who may qualify for a bilingual seal this year. We're very happy about that. And also we do offer TIWA for our Native American students, and they also have the opportunity for dual credit for TIWA 1 and for TIWA 2.
The next slide shows a little bit of our data. The first slide, we are not seeing great a growth as we would like to see in our ELA and math. So the graph down there below shows the proficiency rates from our end of the year assessments last year. One of the concerns that we have is the number of students who are being reclassified, meaning that they come in as freshmen, they don't earn all the credits that they need to go on to a sophomore, so they're reclassified again as a freshman. So we have a couple of plans for that. We're continuing to support our teachers in their tier 1 instruction. That's getting in the classroom, seeing what they're doing, and offering some hints and some help and support to the teachers. Also making sure that the students who need some credit recovery get enrolled in those classes so that we can help support them. We also are providing intervention for our students before they get to the point where they need credit recovery. So we're doing attendance calls. We're calling home, letting parents know, hey, your kid missed these classes. He didn't show up to 3rd and 4th period today. We've got to get him there. Also doing grade checks and letting parents know it's coming near the end of the quarter. This is where your grades are. We need you to help get those kids' grades up. That way, hopefully they don't have to be reclassified and get into a credit recovery class. This one is kind of near and dear to my heart, and one of the reasons that I moved to the high school, but our job as high school teachers, administrators, educators, is to get kids ready for that next step of their life. And we're doing that in a bunch of different ways this year at Los Lunas High School. We're doing some career preparation. We're doing mock interviews through some of our TOSAs, and those are teachers on special assignment. Our English department is helping build resumes, helping kids build resumes so that they're ready to go into the workforce. If it's work or if it's for college, that they have a resume in hand when they go to those things. We also have a program called Beable, where students can explore different career opportunities and figure out what it is that they're actually interested in and where they could make a living for themselves later on. Our counseling department posts multiple links to different colleges, universities, scholarship ideas, different things with the military, all ways that we can succeed, help our students to succeed once they leave our doors. And then our future goal, Mia presented some of this too, but we have a college night coming up and a college tailgate party where we have invited many universities from around the area, and also a couple of neighboring states to come in, and they will provide different scholarship opportunities, tell the kids what they need as far as prerequisites, how they can apply to college and what they can get into. The military is coming in to do their piece there. We've had a number of recruiters on campus during lunches, providing those opportunities and information to kids who might want to go that route. And we are working on a big trades night in a partnership with an organization called Young Bloods. And Mia talked a little bit about this, but that's going to be one of the biggest trade fairs that we've ever had in Valencia County. They did one of these in Albuquerque last year, and they're going to bring it to Los Lunas. And it's going to be a full Valencia County event where there will be students from Los Lunas High, Valencia High, Soda, and Belen all participating, coming to our campus to do mock interviews with different trade schools, looking at opportunities for kids who might not be on that college track, but want to go right into the workforce. One of the biggest things that I'm interested in that is there's going to be a heavy equipment rodeo. So they're going to have bulldozers and cranes and dump trucks and all that kind of stuff in the Los Lunas School parking lot. They probably won't let me near any of that stuff because I have a hard time driving in my truck, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
So some of the things that we're doing to address our students' experience in the classroom is acknowledging their social and emotional development is we have a school-wide SEL, and you guys are aware that, just throughout the past few years, this has been a district-wide initiative, the social and emotional learning And so we do have that. We're not just for students, but our staff also. We have a sensory room for both students and staff to be able to go into and just relax for a little bit. If they're having a tough time, they're able to go in there. We have a lot of different sensory items in there, places where they can sit, just lights. And I've said I was going to move my desk in there so that I could be in there all the time. But we have that for our staff and the students. We also have started this program this past couple of weeks, SOS, it's Signs of Suicide Prevention Program, which we're presenting to our students during one of our during the social study time. But also in that training, they are taught to go to a trusted adult. If they have a friend or if they themselves are experiencing emotions where, they just, are getting to that point where they just don't know what to do, that we've trained all of our staff, custodians, SROs, security, teachers, administration. And we went through the program called Trusted Adult so that the students, when they come to us, we will know how to work with them and also know who and how to report for that student so they can get the resources that they need. One of the ways that we're also supporting our employees is just making sure that, we have the mentor mentee to assist our new teachers. Our Miss McCleary, who is our innovations learning coach, is working closely with those teachers and putting them together. And so that they'll be working on things throughout this year. Also in our staff meetings, we try to present things to our staff that are meaningful to them so that it will help improve, their teaching in the classroom. We have all learner days, which our teachers are really benefiting from. They're able to collaborate with other teachers from across the district, and they're really excited about being able to do that. And as Miss Marcia mentioned earlier, we are having our walkthrough and feedback sessions with our teachers, which we all enjoy doing that because that gives us the opportunity just to sit down and just listen to the teachers and give them feedback and see how we can support them in the classroom. And then family engagement. One of the things that I learned immediately is family engagement's a lot different at the high school level than it is the elementary level. At the elementary level, you just tell them we're having a party and everybody shows up. And they only have to have kids there. They're going to show up. So some of the things that we're doing at Los Lunas High School is we're trying to find those ways that we can engage parents, outside of the traditional things that we do, like the class nights where the counselors, presented information to the students and the parents about things they're going to need to know. We had an open house in August. The parents were able to come in with their students and just tour the building. And then we also have our athletic events, our band concerts, our drama presentations. The other thing that we're doing is at the football games, we are recognizing a staff member, a couple of staff members and students at our school. We are recognizing them right before the game starts and just, talking about all the great things that they're doing in our school. Safety and security, our safety team meets monthly. Some of the things that we've implemented this year is just ensuring all vehicles have parking permits. I'm sure that you guys have seen that on the parent page. Administration, security, we do constantly. We walk the campus constantly in the hallways, going into classrooms, and just also trying to, have students wear their student IDs. We're trying to get across them. This is not, not just a way for me at my age to try to remember their name. This is a safety issue so that we know that the appropriate people are supposed to be on our campus. And at this time, if you have any questions, we will try to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Tiger. All right, gentlemen, Mr. Smith.
So I want to thank you for your presentation. It was very, very good. And I have firsthand knowledge that you guys are a very, very welcoming environment. And in fact, people feel very, very safe there. I have it on good authority that that's happening. In fact, you say good morning to just about everybody that you guys run into. And I think that's awesome.
If they have their window down, they have to hear us.
Yeah. And I think the work that you're doing at the high school is great. And I know you're going to do good things. I know you guys are just starting to work as a team, but I'm sure that there's going to be great things. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Madam, I thank you also for doing a great job there. I just had one question on the grades that they're posted. How often are those updated, and the kids, are they actually aware what their grades are at that time? So they know if they need improvement?
So we go through, we have a couple different ways that parents can check on grades. Number one, we have Canvas, and that's where the majority of our assignments get posted and turned in through. So parents can be observers on a Canvas page. They can see what the assignments are that their kids have, what they've done, what they haven't done, what their grades look like. And then we also have a parent portal that runs through kind of parallel with our Power School, where parents can sign into their parent portal site and look at the grades in real time. So anything that a teacher has graded, any grades that have been in there, we ask the teacher to put in 2 grades per week per class. So parents can go in there at any time from any computer or their phone and look at their kids' grades pretty much in real time.
Great, thank you.
And that's one of the things that we're really encouraging our parents to do. And I know that, you know, for me, that would be hard for me to adjust to, but we're really encouraging our parents to use that parent so that they can know where their kids are at, if they have any assignments missing, and to be able to talk to their students about that.
Great job. I mean, there's living proof right there. You guys are doing a great job.
Well, I think her mom and dad had a lot to do with that. Yeah. This is my first year with her. Thank you. I'm trying not to mess it up.
I like the way you guys have those grade checks, being proactive with that, and then following up, contacting the parents early. So that's important. And no one's getting left behind on that one. Thanks. That's good.
Here.
Thank you. I just want to add that I know you have a tough crowd. You've got a class of kids, like you said, very different from the grade school, from where you went up to the high school. They need that positive reinforcement. I'm a big proponent for the health and wellness, so I'm glad to see that part that you talked about. You got to keep them positive, you got to keep them motivated, and you got to get them there. So I also appreciate that truancy call or that absentee call, because they're not going to learn if they're not in school. So thank you for that. Great presentation.
Well, and I just want to thank you guys for allowing me this opportunity to just be a part of Los Lunas High School. I absolutely just enjoy my team. I couldn't do it without them, our teachers and our kids. And one of the first things I said to our staff when I met with them is, I want to make school fun again. I want our staff to have fun coming to work, because when they do, the kids are going to enjoy coming to school. And I don't want to work somewhere where I don't have fun. And so that's the kind of environment that we try to create. And we're having fun. So you can see that through our dancing. So we have fun. So I think out of the 4 of us, Jeff and I are the best dancers. But thank you guys for allowing us to be.
Thank you, guys. And I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Kevin. Go ahead.
Madam President, members of the board, there are a few things that I would like to report to you this evening. The first being that the board policies that were adopted last spring are now viewable online. And so that means that anyone who can search or find our website can locate those policies. They're located on the Los Lunas Schools website under the LLS Board of Education tab. The link takes you to the policy service page for the Los Lunas policy manual, in which you will find a statement that says policies are subject to ongoing revisions and adoptions by the Board of Education. So in a meeting that we had recently with the Executive Director of the New Mexico School Boards Association, Joe Guillen, he informed us that as policies are amended by the board and approved by the board, the policy service that works under Mr. Guillen will be updated and posted online. However, the timeline for such a replacement was not clearly defined in that meeting, but there are policies there that everybody can see and were approved last spring. Second, I'm in the process of scheduling a Board of Education candidate orientation. And the purpose of that orientation is to focus on the role and responsibilities of the school board, as well as the role and responsibilities of me as superintendent, while providing potential board members with an overview of what to expect. And so that should be taking place in the next few weeks, hopefully by the end of the first week in October. Finally, there are a lot of great things happening in Los Lunas schools, and I hesitate to share with you this evening one great thing because I worry that I'll miss somebody in our schools that are doing amazing things. However, I couldn't pass today after attending the Rotary meeting At that meeting, there were 3 Los Lunas schools employees, and they were recognized because of their exceptional work with Lending a Paw, which is a service organization at Los Lunas High School. Due to their leadership and dedication in working with youth, as well as many positive effects that their club has on the community, they were awarded or presented with by the Rotary Club of Los Lunas a Paul Harris Fellow recognition for outstanding leadership and community involvement. And so I just wanted to mention Celia Adkins, Jessica Baldonado, who are teachers at Los Lunas High School, as well as Linda Oli, because they're an example of the many amazing things happening in this district, and the amazing things that impress me and make me proud to be the superintendent in this district every day. So that is all of my comments under the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Keller. Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent before I move on? No? Okay, so I believe that brings us to public comment. I know that our couple of our young staff members or young community kids are here, and if they want to be excused at this time, we thank you for being part of the meeting. If you want to leave, you're free to do so. In the meantime, Dr. Kettler, do I have any public comments for tonight?
Madam President, I have one request for public comment.
Okay. Okay, Jen. Let's take a couple minutes while we clear out the room and get ready for the rest of the meeting. All right, so we're calling the meeting back. It looks like we are currently at 6:55. Before we move to public comment, I would like to remind our audience of the board's procedures for handling public comment, which are found in the board policy B2150 BEDH. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes per individual speaker. However, as board president, I can further restrict or waive these time limits based off of the speakers. Due to there only being one speaker tonight, the speaker will have the full 5 minutes. The board does not prohibit public criticism or comment about personnel matters, but does discourage personal attacks on board members, staff, personnel, or other persons. Presenters are cautioned that statements or representations concerning others that convey an unjustly unfavorable impression may subject the presenters to a civil action. Any person making public comments shall be solely responsible for the content of his or her comments, and the board neither adopts or assumes responsibility for any comments made by any individuals during the public comment section of this board meeting. With that having been said, I will ask Mrs. Dana Sanders to come forward. She did request permission to address the board on what was item number 9 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Dr. Kettler, I'm here once again to discuss an agenda item regarding discussion and approval of requests for reimbursement of legal fees for board member Brian C. Smith and board member Eloy G. Giron. I'll preface this entire comment by saying that all information is based on my humble and last time humble opinion and easily accessible information. I'll repeat some of what I said in my last comment. And there are several inherent reasons that have already been clearly established that point to the reimbursement of an individual board member's legal fees as an inappropriate, improper, illegal use of public funds. The New Mexico Attorney General's decision 0703 discussed at the last board meeting by Mr. Smith and Ms. Garcia outlines 5 criteria that must be met before the question of paying those fees is sent to an impartial individual or entity to rule on the legitimacy of the request. However, on page 4, second paragraph of the exact same 0703 Attorney General's opinion, it states the following. This office has concluded that a school board could not hire an attorney to defend one of its members in a quo warranto proceeding. They define a quo warranto proceeding as an action to determine or test an officer's right to hold or exercise his office, because such a proceeding is purely personal. As it clearly is outlined in New Mexico Attorney General's opinion 65-233, it clearly states you cannot do such a thing. This statement parallels the circumstances that are before this school board tonight. So I ask, how can you pick out one section of the same AG's opinion and ignore that specific statement? How much clearer does it have to get? There isn't even a gray area here. You can insert the circumstances before you. It's the same question and it should have the same answer. Additionally, the exact same 0703 Attorney General's opinion also states the use of public money to pay personal legal fees is specifically prohibited by the anti-donation clause of Article 9, Section 14 of the New Mexico Constitution. NMAC 6.20.2.23. So now we have opinions, we have statute, we have constitution, and now we have NMAC, which is an administrative code. No district fund should be used for payment of personal legal fees, including attorney fees and costs for any local school board member. Personal legal fees include, but are not limited to, the legal fees expended in obtaining or retaining an elected position. I'm not sure that that language could be any more specific or direct. Let's not ignore the warning that was given by PED Secretary Stewart when he told them that they could not go out and find legal representation, that it could not, that they could not charge that to the school district. At the time that they would have done so, they would have no longer been school board members. They would have been private citizens, making a request to pay their attorney fees tonight a moot point. At the time, Smith and Hidon chose to go out as private citizens and hire an attorney. They had no authority to do so as Los Lunas school board members. Even as a board member, they would have had no authority to retain an attorney and ask for reimbursement later. The choice to continue to defend their case has been theirs and theirs alone. I'm also going to assume that the cost to be represented by Ms. DeSantiago or any other attorney, and that fee would be charged as an impartial person or entity that would cost the district in the tens of thousands of dollars. The question to this board is, why would you allow the expenditure of any more money to accommodate this request? I ask the board to carefully consider the action that they take, use common sense, and make the most fiscally responsible decision possible in this situation. Additionally, I ask whether the action before the board is on solid legal ground and consider the opinions and directives already given from oversight entities. I will use the words of Mr. Smith during the February 2023 board meeting when he adamantly stated that he did not want to give up any decision-making power as a board member. And I ask, why is this situation any different? And why is it okay to ask 3 board members to give up their decision-making power to accommodate the request? I ask that the 3 board members who can vote put their proverbial foot down and deny this request by voting, at the very least, an unethical use of public funds. The power of making fiscal decisions is one duty of the school board. Giving up your responsibility to someone else that because you don't want to make a tough decision involving fellow board members is cowardly. And I ask you to be courageous tonight and stand up for what's right. I'll submit this to Ms. Wolf for the public record.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. All right, so we're going to move on to item number 7, which will be approval of the consent items. Gentlemen, you have the consent items in front of you. They were minimal, but I need a motion to approve the consent items.
To approve the item.
All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Bennett to approve consent items. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Vickers on the consent items. Any discussion on consent items? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Hidon?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Consent items are approved. So that will bring us to item number 9 on the agenda, which is discussion and approval of request for reimbursement of legal fees by the board members, Brian C. Smith and board member Eloy G. Hedon. This was removed from the agenda on August 8th and on August the 22nd of the 2023 board meeting agendas. All right. Ms. Delasanto, if you'll go to the podium, please. I don't know if you will have a presentation or if you just want to start the discussion for the board member.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Kettler, I will just begin this discussion with 2 items for your consideration. First, I'll remind this board that Member Smith has asked that it be tabled at this time, basically withdrawing his request for today. That leaves Member Hedon's request, as there are 2 individuals that are separately, but that is the first thing I would bring up for your consideration. Second, I want to just explain my role and how this request even came forward. My role as an attorney for Los Lunas Public Schools is to represent the district, to do and present information that our office, after due diligence and research, believes is in the best interest of the district overall. That being said, we're individuals. We can't require this board to do anything. We simply take the information that is presented to us, given the context in which it is presented, and then present to this board, as has already been done, what we believe may be one of what may be many different ways to address this matter. My role in that entire process and the role of Elena Gallegos has always been to keep in mind and at the forefront the best interest of the district. The last thing that we want to occur is to put forward a procedure or a process or any explanation of the law that would result in extended litigation for a district that has already had way too much litigation. There are more important things for this board to be doing than discussing issues that could lead to litigation or having executive sessions that involve additional litigation. Our goal is and will continue to be to provide the best advice possible to this board to avoid those circumstances. That being said, we are only one opinion. There may be many different ways to address this particular issue tonight because there is no case law that says this is the process. There is no statute that says this is the specific process. Dana Sanders was correct. There is a New Mexico Administrative Code. There are at least 5 Attorney General decisions, none of them that speak directly to the issues here. It is not what I would think a clear-cut case. Nonetheless, my job is to assist you in the best way possible, given the decision that you as a board want to follow, and to provide the best possible advice to keep you from having some more extended executive sessions in the back to talk about threatened or pending litigation. Just some background in terms of the request. The request was made by board member Hedon and board member Smith. It was advanced to the office of Elena Gallegos as one of the attorneys for the district. She did do research. She did provide you. And as member Smith said earlier, and each of you know, you each have received an email with her outline of the proposed process. Following that, it has come on to this agenda on multiple occasions. The first time it was removed because there was concerns from the public and from board members that there was not sufficient specificity. To avoid the continued drama and issues that result around this matter, it was removed from the agenda. I believed that the agenda item as it was originally listed was specific enough. It was then removed again because board members wanted it to be an action item. And again, today, there was another request. In fairness today, and in keeping with my advice in the prior meetings, it's entirely likely that members Smith and Hedon should not have voted. That would have been consistent with what was done in the prior meetings. Nonetheless, the vote didn't pass, so there is no violation of the Open Meetings Act in that regard. I am concerned, however, that the agenda item has become a proxy for addressing the legitimate issue that is before this board. There is a request. There is a requirement that this board decide how to address this request. There are many ways to address this request. Again, there's no statute, no regulation that outlines a particular procedure. What should happen, however, is that when this board decides how they are going to address this request, they should include some issues, some procedures, some protections for itself, as well as for the district at large. The procedures, let me just outline first a little bit of the controlling provisions here. The controlling provisions here include your district policies that have been adopted. They include some regulations and some attorney general opinions. First, your payment procedures, your policy D 2950 says that when a request is made for payment, it is then the superintendent who shall direct how that payment is made after due care is followed. The question that is not defined in your policy is, what is that due care? That due care question was the question that was advanced to our office to review. Taking into consideration the following, we made our decision. First, we decided that there are some circumstances under which public schools can pay legal fees. The most common is whenever there's a tort action filed against a public employee for something that they did while they were on the job. Then under those circumstances, legal fees can be paid. The next thing that we looked at is the regulation. And the regulation says very clearly, legal fees, it addresses legal fees. And then it inserts a phrase called legal fees must serve a clearly identifiable public interest. That phrase, clearly identifiable public interest, is not defined either in the code or in the Attorney General's decisions. So then we are left with the open question. Is it personable and is it a clearly identifiable public interest? While it may seem that the statute of the regulation itself, 6.20.2.3, makes it very clear what needs to be done, I will tell you that I have been an attorney for many, many years, and no statute, no regulation is ever very, very clear. And this one is no exception. There are Attorney General's opinions that address the payment of legal fees. As I said before, those Attorney General opinions do not cover the exact same circumstance as the circumstance before this board. The circumstance before this board is that member Hedon and member Smith were removed by the public education department, and they objected to the removal through a series of legal actions, starting with their defense in the public education hearing and then filing an appeal to the district court. And then when the district court agreed with them, the public education department filed an appeal to the Court of Appeals. The matter remains pending at the Court of Appeals today. Briefing was completed by all the parties in July, and the matter will likely not be decided for another 6 months. That is the time frame for the Court of Appeals decision. The request of member Smith and member Hedon is based on the district court's decision, which was an appeal of the public education department decision. That district court decision is what was appealed by the public education department. So essentially the case remains ongoing. None of that I just described none of that are the circumstances that were present in any of the Attorney General decisions that that were reviewed by our office or that were cited to by Ms. Sanders just a few minutes ago. The Attorney General's opinions typically refer to either criminal conduct when an employee is asking for a reimbursement of their legal fees for a criminal case, or in 0703, it was for misconduct generally. There is some ability to determine that the case pending before the Court of Appeals is related to misconduct, but the misconduct that is referred to in the Attorney General's opinion decision is not the same as the misconduct that is alleged in this particular case. In the law, we call that a blue cow case. If you can find a case that is square on all fours, you have the same facts, you have the same circumstances, you have the same procedure, and you're looking for the same outcome, then you have a blue cow. We do not have a blue cow here. We have something that is going to require the members of this board to look at the particular circumstances in this case, to look at the law, to look at the facts, and to determine what is the best procedure moving forward under the circumstances. It also will require this board to determine what is the best way to receive information. Members Hidon and Member Smith both have the ability to submit some, or should have the ability to submit some information in some format that they believe that they are relying on to present their request. For example, the decision of the district court is not in your official records. You would probably want to have that in your official records. I am sure that there are questions abounding as to the amount of the fees, how to pay the fees. Do we pay all the fees? Do we pay the fees for the district court or the Court of Appeals or just for the PED decision? All of those questions are questions that this board will need to discuss and decide how they are going to accept this information. Because of all of that complexity and to protect this board, and because this board in some fashion was involved in the underlying action, our office created a process through which an individual other than the 3 board members who could vote could take all of the information, would have access to all of the pleadings, could request from either Los Lunas schools or could request from members Hidon and Member Smith, whatever information that impartial official deemed was necessary. The impartial official that we have reached out to, and it could be the person that we reached out to, or it could be another individual, it doesn't really matter. Again, it's up to this board. The individual that we reached out to is retired Court of Appeals Justice Michael Bustamante. He is a well-renowned, well-respected member of the bar. His integrity is always above reproach and his legal acumen unquestioned. He would be able, more able than I, more able than most attorneys that I know, to take all of these attorney general decisions, to take these regulations, to take any other decision that he deems necessary, including the Court of Appeals decisions, if it comes out, including the district court decision, including all of the PED documents, including whatever he believes is necessary, and make a decision. I will caution, however, that is not the only approach. There is no, again, as I've said before, there is no clear outline of an approach that this board is required to follow. And if this board decides not to follow and not to use an impartial official, that's okay. And it would be my job then to help you through establishing the rest of the procedure that you would need to follow to make sure that your decision as a board remains above reproach as well. I will take any questions that you have. I know it's difficult for members Hidon and Smith. They cannot participate in this conversation. I will throw in one last thing as you discuss and consider. members Hedon and Smith have legal counsel. So their legal counsel, I'm sure, has an opinion on this issue as well. Their legal counsel has not objected to the use of an impartial official. I stand for any questions that you may have.
Madam President,
Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, Mr. Bennett.
just like you said, we don't really know what a dollar amount is here, right?
We do not.
So this is sort of, we don't know, and we don't know what it ends. It could be a continuing fees accrued.
Member Bennett, Madam President, members of the board, we do not know the dollar figure. In my opinion, and again, just one of many, there are, thousands of lawyers out there. In my opinion, the dollar amount is the least relevant issue, because the most important issue is the continuation of the protection of this district and this board as it determines the correct procedure, the correct process to address it. This board has a duty to address it. It could be $5,000, it could be $500,000. The procedure is more important. I would imagine, however, Member Bennett, that as this board creates or decides how the process would proceed, that information would become relevant to whomever, whether it be this board or whether it be an impartial official, that would be one of the things that would need to be disclosed by Member Smith and Member Hedon.
Okay, my other question I have is, according to our policy D3150, it states that to get reimbursement, you have to have prior authorization from the district. To my knowledge, they don't.
That is what this discussion is about.
Okay, and then and like you said, you sort of went over the selection of the person. That just came from your office, or?
It did come from our office in terms of selecting the impartial official. We had two choices in front of us. The language of Attorney General Opinions decision 0703 says that the decision to pay the fees must be made by an impartial official or official body. So this board is an official body that could make that decision. We focused on the impartial official for two reasons. One, this issue clearly is fraught with a lot of emotion, a lot of tension. It's important to the community. There very well could be a lot of money at stake, and we don't want to get that decision wrong. Second, for the protection of this board, for whatever decision this board makes one way or the other, could result in additional litigation. Our goal was to minimize the litigation as much as possible. When there's an impartial official who is selected and there's no objection to that selection, then it minimizes the likelihood of additional litigation, which is the goal of our office at this point.
Okay, and then the other thing you're talking about, Attorney General, isn't it possible to get a current Attorney General's opinion?
I did look at that. There are some specific provisions in terms of who can request an Attorney General provision, an Attorney General opinion, and it's in my bag. So if you'll give me 1 second, I'll run over and grab it so I can answer your question.
Thank you.
I did, Member Bennett, look at that specific question, and I believe as I'm looking for that information that a board can request a new Attorney General opinion.
Thank you. And also, what about also getting the opinion from the state auditor to make sure we're not violating any anti-donation laws?
We would need to ask the auditor. I hesitate for this reason, Member Bennett. One of the issues that resulted in the removal of the board the last time was an improper request for an audit. So before I answer that question, I would like to read how that other audit came about. I just remembered it off the top of my head, but I remember that the prior board was removed for improperly requesting an audit without following the proper procedures. I know that there are some specific procedures that need to be followed. If those are followed, then Member Bennett, yes, you could possibly ask for a new audit. However, I would say that an audit addresses procedures that have already been done to be sure that they were done correctly. And in this case, there is not yet anything to audit as no procedure has been done.
Right, but I'm talking about the auditor themselves, the state auditor. If this is even like legal for us to do, or is it an anti-donation violation?
Oh, then addressing a sort of like a anticipatory opinion before it is done. Member Bennett, in truth, I don't know the direct answer to that, but I could research it if that is what you're concerned about.
Okay, so we've been dealing with this for a while. It was originally on our agenda, not as an action item, but it was just there.
Correct.
What is the purpose of putting it on the agenda if we're not asked to vote on it? Why was it there at all if it's not an action item?
Member Bickers, members of the board, your policy D 2950 says that when a request is received for payment, and in order to maintain good vendor relations, this typically applies to other vendors, but this is a request for payment, then only after due care has been taken, should that payment be made. Then policy C 2220 says when there's no official policy in place to address the type of payment that is to be made, then the superintendent's office tries to figure it out and then provides notice to this board. This was on notice to the board under those policy provisions.
So if we had approved that prior, when it originally came onto our agenda, would we be basically authorizing this arbiter to make the decision regarding expenditures, then bypass us, basically?
It would have essentially have bypassed the board member, Vickers. There is no policy that explains how this type of payment is to be made. It would have put in place the impartial official in the place of the official body. And then his decision would have come back to the board for review.
Would it have?
Eventually, it would have come back to the board. Yes, the impartial official has no authority other than to look at the law, determine and answer the questions in the law, and give this board its opinion of whether or not the attorney fees should be paid and how much of the fees should be paid under a lodestar method.
Okay. So if there was to be a hearing before this arbiter, first of all, your role is, are you the board's attorney or the district's attorney?
I am the board's attorney.
So this was done by Elena as the district's attorney? Is that how?
When, forgive me, member.
go ahead.
Vickers. When we represent the district and the board, which usually are one and the same. You are the policy setting entity for the district. We always take into consideration what is the best interest of the district as a whole. In this particular case, what we believed would be the best interest of the district would be to protect this board and use an impartial official to make a decision that is fraught with all kinds of concerns over additional litigation and past litigation and even pending litigation. And in that instance, then what is in the best interest of the district is also in the best interest of this board.
Okay. So at a hearing before this arbiter,
Just real quick, and I just want to clarify for my verbiage. There wasn't going to be a hearing. An arbitrator's just going to go through the documents. So I just want to clarify, there's not a hearing.
okay,
So maybe you need to clarify that, but I didn't want that to go farther down the road.
Madam
There would
President,
be
I was
this
going to-
hearing in court, because there isn't.
There's, Madam President, I was going to address that at his question. Go ahead.
go ahead then, tell what is that procedure then?
The proposed procedure would be that that he's not an arbiter, he's not a mediator, he's an impartial official. He just happens to be someone who is highly respected and knows the law and is a retired Court of Appeals justice. His role would be to take the information that he believes is necessary under the outline that was provided to each of you. He could ask Member Smith, he could ask Member Hidon, he could ask Los Lunas Public Schools for whatever information he thought was necessary to make this legal decision. He would have access to all of the pleadings. He would have access to the public education department, to the entire transcript that's on record with the district court, including the entire transcript that's on record with the Court of Appeals. If he thought that he needed any additional information from either Los Lunas, he could ask that through President Garcia, or he could ask that to counsel for Member Smith and Member Hidon. It is not anticipated to be a hearing. However, if this board believes that it should be an outright hearing, that is part of the discussion here. Having a hearing would be more costly for the district than having an impartial official simply look at what is already on the record. I've reviewed the record, and there is thousands of pages of exhibits and documents and testimonies and pleadings and briefs in chief and counter briefs in chief and cross claims and responses and replies. He has a significant, or this board, whoever is the decision maker, would have a significant amount of information. And it is unlikely that anything that a hearing could provide would provide anything new other than what has already been presented on at least 2 other occasions, and now is on brief with the Court of Appeals. Given the extensive underlying litigation that is already there, and it doesn't seem necessary to have a hearing where the 2 sides present any kind of legal argument. Those have all the legal arguments that could possibly be created have already been created in this case and have already been put forward, with the exception of how the Attorney General opinions should be applied to the legal fees. That is new. That is the new question of law. And because it is a unique and new question of law, again, that supports our initial determination that perhaps an impartial official who had some experience in the law would be well suited. I would say again, it's not the only way to do it. It is just the way that we thought would best protect the district.
We're already expending a lot of money for your advice and Elena Gallegos's work on this project. This person, this official, are they being paid or are they doing this voluntarily?
Justice Bustamante is requesting payment at a rate of $350 an hour.
That's a bargain.
It is cheaper than a hearing, I will say that. And it is also cheaper than defending another lawsuit for doing the wrong process.
And you have stated before, you don't know how much money is being requested?
I'm specifically and intentionally not asked for that information.
So when we're asked to approve a contract or some other expenditure, there are certain limits as the administration can spend money up to a certain level without board approval, et cetera. But we're asked to approve this not knowing anything about this and where we're at as far as a level of expenditure.
Member Vickers, to be clear, we were not asking the board to approve anything in particular. We have a request in front of us that is sort of like, but not actually, a sole source request into the procurement code. We can't go out and do an RFP for this, so the procurement code is difficult to follow. I realize that there are expenditure limits under the procurement code. I'm aware of the policies. That again only explains why this particular request merits a different process and handling in a different way. I understand your concern. I am aware that this board and the procurement code and all of the laws place limits upon the spending of school districts. I'm not oblivious to that at all. In fact, it was one of the things that we had to consider here. What happens when the arbitrator comes back, or I use the arbitrator, that's the wrong word, the official comes back and says that the fees need to be paid? What happens then? What portion of the procurement code do we follow? Is it sole source? How do we define the sole source? Is there another provision? There's no RFP that can be followed. It's too late for that. And then what other provisions do we put in place? That's when it would come back in front of this board.
The other thought is how can we justify spending public money to pay for an individual's attorney fees that in no way benefit the school district? And you're asking us to do that, to authorize that.
Member Vickers, I am not authorizing this board or the impartial official to pay or not pay based only on that comment. I believe that the Attorney General's opinions that are in place address specifically your concern. There is already language in these Attorney General opinions that say that payment for personal legal fees is a violation of the anti-donation clause. That is correct. So if this impartial official determines that these fees that are being requested are personal legal fees, then in that case, the decision will be no, and there will be no payment made. Assuming that the impartial official determines that they are not personal legal fees, then the next provision would be to follow the 5 determinations that are outlined in the Attorney General's opinion 0703, which requires that the charges arise from a discharge of an official duty, that the public employee must have been acting in good faith, that the employing government entity must have express or implied legal authority to pay the legal expenses, that the employee is exonerated of the charges, and that the decision to pay the fees is made by an impartial official or official body. All of those provisions are what the Attorney General has outlined specifically to address your concern. And that concern is that public funds should not be used to pay personal legal fees in specific circumstances. However, the Attorney General opinion does allow for the payment of legal fees if and when the individuals requesting the fees can prove all of these things. 1, that they are not personal legal fees, and 2, all of the 5 provisions in the AG's opinion. The burden on, if you would, for using a legal phrase, the burden then on the individual who is making the request is to overcome all of those things. all of the provisions outlined in the New Mexico Administrative Code and all of the provisions outlined in the AG's opinion. That is what protects this board, this district, from paying legal fees that it should not pay. That is what prevents an unauthorized expenditure of money and prevents from a violation of the anti-donation clause.
So your office, in looking at all of that you just outlined, could not make a determination as to move forward with this?
We are neither an official body nor an impartial official. We do not have the authority to make that decision. It is not for us to decide if those standards are met or not met. It is for the decision maker to make those determinations. Our job is not to decide for this board. Our job is to advise this board to ensure that as much as possible, given the determinations that you want to make, that we help you follow the law as much as possible. We were not asked and we would not render an opinion about whether or not in this particular circumstance, those provisions have all been met.
So theoretically, if this was disposed of by this board and not dealt with, and the parties involved sued, would, in your opinion, our insurance pay for the cost of that?
Member Vickers, that actually is a very good question. I have been in discussions with NIPSIA over that very issue. We have exchanged many emails and there is still no final answer. That answer remains pending. When I do have an answer, I assure you that I will forward the response from NIPSIA to the entire board. I simply don't have an answer. They have not said yes or no.
That's all the discussion I have.
I don't have any further questions. I'm pretty clear, I think, on the options that the board has been laid out as for how we should proceed. I think that there's a process and the procedures that we can choose from. I think there's options that this board can take. The language of how it's put on the agenda or not, I understand was proved itself how touchy this subject can be. And whether or not it was going to be placed on the agenda and the words that we used and how we used it and the names that we put on is exactly the reason why this is such a touchy subject. Knowing a little bit about the courts and the law and the process, it's all about having a fair discussion as to whether or not this should or should not happen. So what I believe is that this is not the best use of the district's money. That's what I believe. It's not a question of that. I think we all know that that's probably not the best use of this district's money. Doesn't help the kids, doesn't help the classroom, it doesn't help the teachers. It's not budgeted. All those things that as a board, we have to decide, no, this isn't in there. However, there's a process that we're supposed to follow. And that's what I want to make sure we get right, because what I care about is the courage of making the best decision for this district and for us as a board. That's what matters. So having said that, gentlemen, you've called for this item as a discussion and a vote. What do you want to see happen?
Madam Chair, I move that we do not approve item number 9 on the agenda, especially given the wording that's there and the fact that I'm not going to vote based on worry of being sued. I'm going to vote based on what is, I believe, the right thing to do.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers. I got a motion. Do I get a second?
I'll second.
So I got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Sorry. Repeat the motion, Mr. Vickers.
I move that we do not approve item number 9, discussion and approval of requests for reimbursement of legal fees by board member Brian Smith and Board Member Eloy Haram.
For clarification purposes, Madam President, Mr. Vickers, is your vote to deny the request or is your vote to remove it, to just take it off of the agenda today? Could you help me understand that?
To deny the approval,
To deny the request that has been made?
yes.
And that's your second, Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Any more clarification needed? All right, Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bennett, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote no. I think our district has suffered enough through this process and I don't want to see any more legal action. And I'm just sorry that it has to continue. We're going to move on now to item number 11, discussion and action to amend policies. All right, so we are on 11A, Section D, fiscal management, and E, support services. These sections under the amended policies have already been discussed by this board. I believe Dr. Kettler has already put forward some suggestions and some documents as to what we should consider. So I think on 11A, these are ready to vote for final read. Is that correct, Dr. Kettler?
Madam President, we have not received any feedback from Policy Service Attorney, Mr. Kennedy.
Okay.
I recommend that the board proceed how they feel most appropriate and comfortable with. However, I will say that E3900 and E4250, that being copyright issue, and because of the text message issue on work devices, Mr. Bennett had requested these items be sent to Mr. Kennedy for comment. And so I believe that those two particular policies could be called back for a third read after Mr. Kennedy responds. I do not believe that anything else in policy E or E was questionable last time we had a policy meeting.
So if I understand you, Dr. Kettler, you're saying approve policies D and E except for the certain line item that addresses the trademark and the item that addresses the messages and emails?
Correct. You already approved last spring those policies, so they're currently in place. And before you make any amendments to those, I would recommend we have a third reading.
And just for the record, could you tell me what, I think I had wrote these down, but just to confirm, for the trademark issue, it would be E-3900. And I believe for the documentation of emails and text, what could include text messages would be section E-4250.
Correct.
So those would go to a third read and approve all the other policies is your recommendation today.
Correct.
Okay. I did want to clarify that for the board. So gentlemen, it's up to you. The superintendent has recommended approval of section D and E, except for E-4250 and E-3900.
Without those exceptions.
So I got a motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Second.
So I got a motion and a second from Mr. Bennett and Mr. Vickers to approve all of section E, fiscal management, all of section E, support services, except for E-4250 and E-3900, which will be brought forward to the board at our next meeting in October for a third read. Any clarification or discussion on those items? All right, Mr. Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So those policies are approved with the exceptions. Next, that brings us to section G, which is our personnel section. This would be our first read. You also have in front of you, gentlemen, the document from Dr. Kettler for the comments that were made. I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Kettler.
Madam President, members of the board, you do have in front of you two documents. The first is a record of all recommended changes with a column referencing the policy number or the location, and a second column with comments in regards to those recommended changes. These changes are recommended by staff. We had the link on the website for public recommendations, and there was no input. And so these are solely staff recommendations. This policy in itself is very large, and staff recommended a number of changes. And so the second document that you have is the policy G on personnel itself. And that is the red strike through version with the added language in blue. I think probably the most efficient way to go through this is to just address the policies that we're recommending amendments to or changes to. Starting with G0050, personnel goals and priority objectives. The second bullets, we recommend striking appraisal program and replacing that with evaluation system.
And before you continue on the read, Mr. Smith, and I don't know, I know I didn't receive any. Were there any board comments or?
I don't have any.
Nobody sent in from the board? Okay. All right, just making sure. Continue then.
If skipping forward to G0750. That being staff conduct, standards of professional conduct. Standard 1/7 bullet. So you have to skip all the way down. That bullet starts with shall not have inappropriate contact with any student. The sub bullet, fourth sub bullet is in the strike is there. We recommend striking unless absolutely unavoidable, as where a student has missed his her usual transportation is unable to make reasonable substitute arrangements. And to replace that with the exception of an SRO with approval of school administration. So this refers to giving students rides in vehicles. And so we recommend that we change it to read offering or giving a ride to a student with the exception of an SRO with approval of school administration. So that would be permissible in that situation. Moving forward to G1000. This is the non-medical use or abuse of drugs or alcohol. We recommend striking the 9th and 10th bullets. Oh, okay. I will keep going. If someone needs me to stop, please stop me. Moving forward, G1350. Employee assistance. Second paragraph under employee assistance program heading, strike will and replace with may. In addition, strike board as approvals are for these employee assistant programs have never gone to the board in the past. We have a list of community organizations that can provide employee assistance to staff members, and they're referred as those occur or are needed.
Are those agencies going to be outlined anywhere in here?
So they would not be outlined in the policy. They would be outlined in procedure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those may change, and if the policies height, then we just changed the procedure to reflect the new agencies. G 1790. Employment recommendation. We recommend striking the entire section with the heading rules regarding employment references and recommendations. G 1800 staff grievances. We recommend striking the second paragraph and adding the language instead that we have that would be consistent with our collective bargaining agreements with the Los Lunas Schools NEA Los Lunas CBA. G 1950. This is the drug and alcohol testing of employees. We recommend that council or Mr. Kennedy look at this. Sorry.
So you missed G 2050, is that what you said?
1950.
Go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
This is the drug and alcohol testing of employees other than transportation employees. And so we recommend that Mr. Kennedy look specifically at the second paragraph and associated bullets pertaining to voluntary submittal by employees to drug and alcohol testing. Okay. G 2050. Professional staff positions. In the third paragraph, we recommend striking the superintendent will present. We recommend striking present and replacing that with established. And in addition, adding the word new between the and position. So before establishment of any new position, the superintendent will establish a job description for the new position that specifies the qualifications and the performance responsibilities. Okay, G 2150 professional staff contracts and compensation. Fifth paragraph, strike recommendations and replace with information. Sixth paragraph, strike recommendations and replace with information, and also strike establish and replace with approve. G 2400. This is professional staff supplementary pay plans. We recommend in the first paragraph, striking recommend to the board and replace with approve. Okay, G 2550 professional support staff sick leave. We recommend striking the fourth and fifth paragraphs as these are very specific in terms of their numbers. And we recommend replacing that language with the language that is indicated there specific to sick leave. This would be language consistent in our collective bargaining agreement with the NEA. We also recommend I don't have a paragraph number for you, but sick leave of any staff member who does not serve a full school year shall be prorated. We recommend striking at the rate of 1 day per month and replacing that to reflect what we actually do, which is based on the number of contract days worked.
So based on the number of contract days worked, are they gonna be able to? We have comp time that we recognize, right? Or do we recognize comp time?
I think that's called adjusted schedule.
What's that?
I think it might be adjusted
And
schedule.
I'm asking the superintendent. Do we
We
recognize?
do recognize comp time with prior approval.
All right,
G 2600. Professional support staff, personal emergency and religious leave. Again, all of the strike through that you see in the first section before victims domestic abuse leave. All of that strike through and the additions reflects what is in our collective bargaining agreement with NEA.
So may I ask, this policy is going to be subject to revision almost every year based on new contracts?
If the language in the contract changes in terms of personal emergency and religious leave, it would have to be revisited each year. Which, as a general rule of thumb, policy should continually be reviewed and updated, as you know.
Right.
Dr. Kettler, referring back to his question now, so if it's gonna be updated yearly, I mean, it's gonna probably have to be updated yearly. Do we recognize comp time in our collective bargaining agreement? Is that a negotiated item?
I honestly, I cannot answer that question. I don't know if.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Of employees. Thank you. Oh, look, I sound suddenly different. Your collective bargaining agreement covers individuals that are protected under the collective bargaining agreement, those that are in the bargaining unit. You have employees that are not in the bargaining unit. Your policies, your superintendent, your principals, your administrators are not in the bargaining unit. I think otherwise Los Lunas has a wall to wall, which means all employees are covered in your bargaining unit, but not all employees. So you can have provisions that are different in your policies because your policies would apply to anyone who is not in the bargaining unit, or to the extent that your collective bargaining agreement is silent on an issue, then your policies apply. So to your question, Member Vickers, if the intent is that your policies mirror the CBA, then yes, every time the CBA is updated, you will need to update your policies. But it is not a requirement because your collective bargaining unit employees will be protected by the CBA, and everyone else outside the unit is covered by the policy, and you don't need to amend it every year. Did that address your concern?
Yeah, I wasn't exactly a concern, just clarification. So, Madam Chair, and I think you answered that, but just to be sure, the collective bargaining agreement trumps policy.
For members of the bargaining unit,
Right.
but not for employees who are not covered by the CBA.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Continue. G 2900, professional support staff leaves of absence without pay. Recommendation to strike the second bullet recommended by the superintendent and approved by the governing board if the leave period exceeds 12 weeks. G 3000. Professional staff, conferences, visitations, workshops, recommend striking conferences, visitation, workshops, and replace that with professional leave. G 3050, sabbatical leave, recommends adding and extended leave of absence. And in addition, adding a section to this policy on extended leave of absence. G 3100. Professional support staff voluntary transfer of accrued annual or sick leave. Recommend striking all of G 3100 with the exception of the last paragraph and replacing it with language as indicated on the edited document and employee leave donation, which addresses catastrophic illness, serious injuries, family members, eligible employees, donors, limitations, consequences, as well as there are some procedures listed there.
And this is the current.
This is current. Yes, correct.
Is this all outlined in the collective bargaining agreement?
Yes,
All this blue?
yeah, yes, it is.
Okay.
G 3150, professional staff bereavement leave. Again, strike all language from the policy service and replace with the language that you see there in the document. E 3200, professional staff vacations and holidays. Under the heading vacations, strike 12-month license administrators earn blank weeks of vacation, which shall be taken when the school is not in session. Vacation may accumulate to a maximum of blank days, at which time no more vacation can be earned. As accumulated vacation days are used and dropped below blank days, an eligible employee may again accumulate vacation up to the maximum limit. In addition, under the heading holiday, strike may be and replace with are. G 3550, professional staff certification and credentialing requirements. Under the new hires heading, part of the first sentence, we recommend striking who have not been initially licensed within 24 months of applying for employment. Also strike fingerprint cards. Those are no longer used. And strike the public school shall pay the cost of obtaining fingerprint or criminal history records for licensed personnel. Adding the cost of obtaining electronic fingerprints shall be paid by the applicant offered employment. Also in that paragraph, strike fingerprint cards again in the last sentence and strike may replacing with will. At the end of G 3550, recommend adding This new section that specifically addresses certification and credentialing requirements of new employees. In which graduate credits or degrees must be presented. In G3750, part-time and substitute professional staff employments. Under the first paragraph, under the heading substitute teachers, strike the selection of a substitute teacher will be made by the principal only from a list of approved substitute teachers provided to each principal by the superintendent or designee. Currently, substitutes are provided to the schools from the personnel office when a teacher is sick or is out, and there is no list to choose from. G3950, eighth bullet, strike and name or names of evaluator. G4500, add to heading transfers / reassignments. Strike all of the transfer section and replace with language on transfers to include lateral transfers and involuntary transfers from the collective bargaining agreement. Skipping forward to G5800, professional staff reduction in force. Strike all bullet points under paragraph 1 and replace again with language that's consistent with our collective bargaining agreement. In addition, strike paragraph 3. Addressing criteria for selection of staff members to be released. In G5900, in the second paragraph, strike governing authority and replace with superintendent. In G6100, under the categories of misconduct, at the end of that list, add the Los Lunas Schools website, which is just a fill-in blank on the policy service. However, under the section titled minor discipline, eliminate the entire minor discipline section, replacing it with progressive discipline. And language consistent with what we currently do. In G6350, we recommend striking the first paragraph in the bullets and replacing that language on professional research and publishing. That language is consistent with old board policy on this subject. G6800, support staff contracts and compensation. Under the compensation heading, strike recommendations on the, And also strike the last paragraph. So it would read, the superintendent will provide to the board salaries and benefits of support staff employees in conjunction with the development of the district's annual budget. $69.50 support staff supplementary pay overtime. Strike recommends to the board. And replace with approve. The superintendent will approve an extra duty pay schedule each year for its review and action. And that should be. And action should also be struck. G 7500. Support staff vacations and holidays. Strike the first paragraph and replace with language that matches policy G 3200. Professional staff vacations and holidays. However, that section has one more paragraph in it for professional staff. G 7700. Support staff certification and credentialing requirements. Add the title new hires. In the second sentence, strike the public school and replace with cost of the electronic fingerprints. Add the word be, strike pay, and add paid by, striking the cost of, strike the S on applicant, offered employment. And then in the last sentence of that first paragraph, replace may with will. G 8250. Add to the heading transfers, reassignments, strike all of the transfer section and replace with language on transfers, lateral transfers and involuntary transfers. It's the same language from the professional staff assignments in regard to transfers. G 8450, support staff workload. Last paragraph of the last sentence of the first paragraph, add when possible. So it would read, when possible, employees will be notified at least 1 week in advance of any modification to the work week plan. And finally, G 9300. Discipline, suspension, termination, and discharge of support staff members. Again, strike the entire section under heading minor discipline and replace that with progressive discipline, which would match professional staff discipline, suspension, termination, and discharge.
So that would be our first read for section G with the amended proposed changes made by Dr. Kettler and staff. I know this was a big section on personnel. Thanks to the staff for going through that.
Madam President.
Every line and sentence to make sure we get it right. This is a very important section of our policies, and I do appreciate them and your input, Dr. Kettler, to get us to this point. So,
Madam President.
yes, go ahead.
If I may, thank
Yes.
you. I apologize for the interruption, but Madam President, members of the board, I would be remiss if I didn't point out just one thing. I appreciate that the effort is being made to make the policies match with the CBA, and that's well and good. This board certainly has the authority and the power to do that. However, I would ask that particularly those sections that relate to discharge and termination be carefully reviewed by Mr. Kennedy, because individuals who are covered under the collective bargaining agreement are likely also covered under the School Personnel Act that protects for terminations and discharges. Individuals who are not in the collective bargaining agreement, under the collective bargaining unit, i.e. administrators, are not protected. They are specifically exempted from some of the provisions of terminations and discharge. And it would make the administration of the school more difficult, more wieldy, if all of the tenure provisions, as they're colloquially referred to, would suddenly be applied to all administrators. Again, this board can certainly apply the provisions of the collective bargaining agreement to non-bargaining unit members. However, do be careful about those termination and discharge provisions that do not already under the law provide additional protections to administrators.
Which would raise my question, Superintendent, that when Mr. Kennedy looks at this and any of those termination requirements that the district has to follow, if they're not already written in here, he would recommend that we add it, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Okay. And all of the changes that have been made and presented to us this evening are going to be given to Mr. Kennedy to be present at our next setting to give his guidance on whether or not they're number one lawful, number one that they've covered all the sections that we need to cover, and then maybe let him know that we want to pay close attention to the termination clauses.
That is correct, Madam President.
Okay.
Madam President.
Yes.
What is our timeline on this policy? When's the second read? And
So our next meeting is coming up on October what did we say? 10th. So our next read on this section G of personnel would be on that date.
October.
10th. What's the date?
October 10th.
10th. Sorry.
October 10th.
Okay. Yes, it did. And again, the rewrite or the review of the trademark and the other one that we've asked Mr. Kennedy to look at.
Sure.
Any other suggestions or amendments to section G? Okay, not hearing any, then the public can also see this on the webpage if they want to. I don't know, it's kind of late, I guess, for them to make comment, but it'll be up on the webpage if they want to review it.
The policy without the staff's recommendations was on the website until last Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to item number 12, which is going to be the work plan for the policy review. I believe Dr. Hitler has also provided us with the timeline of what's remaining of our sections. Do you want to cover that for us, Dr. Hitler?
Madam President, members of the board, you should have in front of you a board policy review timeline for the remaining sections of the School Board Association's policies that we have adopted and are now reviewing and amending. The timeline is pretty self-explanatory, moving through the rest of the policies while completing the cleanup of E and G after a first read tonight. Section H and I, and these were selected and put together based on the size of the policies. And so we will post section H and I to the website for public comments, and the staff will begin reviewing this month, and they will come up at the October 10th meeting. And this would be a first read, the October 10th meeting. Section J, which is larger, will go up for community and staff review in October, with the first reading November 14th. Section K, community and staff review in November. The board will hear that or read that for the first time in December, along with section L.
So they won't be posted though, they already are.
Correct. The policies that were adopted last spring are posted currently. Yes. I believe the practice has been, and Dr. Elder could correct me if I'm wrong, is to post the individual sections with the review form. So people don't have to, the public doesn't have to go look for those. Also, Madam President, members of the board, I would also like to know Los Lunas Schools received an email from Mr. Joe Guillen, President of the New Mexico School Boards Association, with the New Mexico School Boards Association policy service advisories in accordance with legislation that was passed by the 2023 New Mexico legislature. That needs to be reviewed, considered, and adopted by the board. And so I recommend that these policies referenced in the policy advisory be added to the October 10th meeting for board review.
And they'll fall under several different sections, assuming on what the legislative changes were, I'm assuming.
That is correct, Madam President. A, B, E, and J.
Okay, so there'll be changes per the legislative statutes in A, B, E, and J, and we'll consider those on October 10th.
I would recommend we hold off on J until we get to J.
Oh,
But
we'll get there.
yeah, I didn't, yeah, I misspoke.
Which is,
Correct.
that's it. Board members, any questions on the timeline? Okay, we're going to be following that one. This item is for informational purposes only. No action is needed or warranted on the time, warranted at this time on the work action plan for policy review. Next, that takes us to item number 13, which is a presentation regarding the upcoming election and the 3-mill. Thank you for your patience this evening, Mr. Good. If you'll come forward, and I'll turn this over to Dr. Kettler, who will introduce you and your discussion tonight.
Madam President, members of the board, at this time, I would like to call Mike Good, Director of Network Operations, to the podium for his presentation on the upcoming 3-mill election.
Good evening. Hello, Madam Chair and members of the board and Superintendent Dr. Kettler and esteemed IT colleagues, and thank you for remembering to turn my mic on. Actually, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize the few people in our IT departments that do come to every board meeting and make the audio visual possible and make things run in terms of the YouTube presentation. And I've seen a lot of audio improvements just recently as well. So I know John especially labors over making sure that everything gets done correctly. And I hear it's not the easiest job in the world. So thanks to John Schaff, Ryan Chavez, and our newest recruit, Jacob Unger. So it's difficult to divide out what we do in technology into specific projects that have a specific time frame that with a beginning and an end. That does happen from time to time. However, our job is an ongoing one. So we start various projects and most of those continue going into the future. So about the best I can do is give you the lay of the land over the last 5 years or so. And I just want to point out that this is all being presented in the overall context of a bond election coming up in November. And first of all, you've heard from Tiffany McGinn of the last couple of sessions regarding construction and maintenance and the 2-mill. Now, what we're talking about now is 3-mill. And as we like to say, there is no increase being proposed. So we have been fortunate enough to have the community support over the years, and we hope to be fortunate enough to continue that support. So with that, I'm reporting to you some of the projects and whatnot that we've been involved in over the last several years and going forward. So let's talk about the one-to-one device to student and staff program that we maintain. If you recall, with the COVID pandemic, I clearly remember in March of 2020, spring break, we got together and we came up with a plan to make sure we could essentially go one-to-one with our students almost overnight. And I remember handing out iPads and so forth out corridor windows and just coming up with policies and procedures on the fly. Since then, we've had a lot of time to adapt to how we're managing this one-to-one program, and we've made a lot of improvements there. So we have optimized and centralized our mobile device fees tracking on a single platform. So in the beginning, that was being done on the fly, as I said, at the school sites. People were trying to keep track of who had what, et cetera. But now we've got a much better platform to track all of that. And just to give you a little bit of idea of the scale, we have now about 10,000 mobile devices in the district. And that's just a ballpark number. Each student has at least one device, and staff generally have at least one, if not in many cases, two or more devices. And if you tack on the 1,500 Windows-based computers, that's quite a fleet of devices to manage. We have dramatically increased student and staff reliance on technology devices and online applications. That's more of a passive action on our part, in that we are supporting that dramatically increased usage. As you know, is evident since the pandemic, we have really changed the way that we do education in terms of the usage of technology and its employment in the classroom and out. For example, Zoom is still being used at the Digital Academy, as well as for other schools and staff functions. So I consistently see where there are after-school meetings and whatnot, and a lot of the schools will actually still use Zoom, which was the dreaded platform back in the pandemic. However, it's really, truly a benefit these days to have that available. So in terms of general technology projects, we have migrated to a new district voice over IP phone system. That was probably a little more than 5 years ago, but we continue to maintain and support that. We've done broad range server and system upgrades, including network upgrades at our Wi-Fi infrastructure. One of those being that all of the networks at each of the school sites were 10 years ago at 1 gigabit, and now we're at 10 gigabits pretty much across the board. And we also have accomplished connecting all of the school sites via fiber at 10 gigabits. So we have a very robust connection throughout the district. Now, speaking specifically about internet access, over this time period, we've gone from about 1 gig up to 5 gigs. And when I started with the district 14 years ago, we were at 100 megs. So this 5 gigs is probably about 50 times, if I'm doing the math right, of where we started just over a decade ago. Included with the necessary upgrade in internet speeds, we've also had to upgrade our core network speeds as well. So that involves upgrading firewalls, core switches, et cetera, et cetera. And so essentially going from that 1 gig to the 10 gig mandated that we change out a lot of the equipment, making sure that everything is up to date. We also maintain regular MacBook, iPad, PC refreshes for staff and students as well. So that's an ongoing expense that, these MacBooks and iPads generally have about a 5 or 6 year lifespan in general. So they have to be periodically refreshed. Next slide, please. So let's talk about a few security related projects. Technology supports a new IP network-based intercom, access control, as well as IP security camera systems. So we actually have a parallel network that we use to support those systems. We have robust data backups for our servers and for databases, et cetera, both within the district as well as internet-based backups. So if you've ever been concerned about our email systems or our directories and so forth, you can rest assured that I sleep well at night because I know that they're well backed up and taken care of. We also maintain antivirus, anti-spam, cybersecurity platforms for decreasing phishing, cyber threats, and increasing staff awareness. We actually just started a new contract with a company called Know Before. And with that, we actually plan a campaign to increase awareness and education of our staff members so that they don't become victims of cyber attacks or hacking. We update and maintain. Oh, okay. I have a little trouble actually reading this slide. Adequate firewall at the network edge. And this will be something that we're looking at going forward as well, increasing speeds, considering the increased demand for internet access. We also have these applications, PDQ, in order to deploy software. IIQ inventory basically maintains our asset inventory as well as our ticketing system and so forth for actually streamlining our processes and support. Finally, we have general technology maintenance and optimization. We've currently completed the wiring of Apple TVs. We had some connectivity issues with wireless connectivity until we were able to complete that project. So hopefully we're seeing improved performance on the wireless networks. As I mentioned earlier, we have a parallel security network that runs side by side with our existing network for increased security for that particular network and increased uptime. We've revamped our battery backup strategy by getting rid of unneeded UPSs as well as monitoring UPSs in strategic locations to ensure that we have maximum uptime. The IIQ ticketing system for tracking tech and work orders, device asset and fees tracking. I've mentioned that one already, but essentially that's critical in maintaining the entire fleet in some sort of order in what we do. We have optimized systems management like Jamf, which actually is a system that manages all of our Apple mobile devices, PDQ for inventory and for software deployment as well. We also do funding support for PowerSchool student information system. So we're one of the primary funding sources. It would be 3ML where that's supported next. So in terms of our 5-year projections, we do anticipate, and this is the big ticket item here, we do anticipate actually moving forward with replacing all of the existing smart boards in the district. The smart boards actually are pretty old, in some cases 10 to 15 years old. Lots of peripherals, accessories, components, and things that keep going out and actually cause us a lot of work orders. And what we're really looking at this point, we're doing an evaluation on what are called IFPs or interactive flat panel boards. And a lot of school districts have already gone with these, but I'm really excited to see these come into our district, not only because we're going to be getting rid of the pain of the smart boards and all of the maintenance that they require, et cetera, but it's just going to offer a better experience for the teachers, for the students, more interactivity. We are looking at changing our Wi-Fi security to a cloud-based system that will operate on certificate authentication. We want to optimize digital onboarding for staff and students to increasingly work effectively and efficiently. Essentially, we're talking about how much time does it take when a student comes to the district till they're ready to be electronically engaged? How much time does it take for a staff member once they reach the district? So, we just went through a very hectic month in August, and we experienced all of this stuff firsthand when a staff member is hired, maybe at the last minute, and they need to have their equipment. We need to optimize those times. And I wouldn't say that we're doing extremely terribly at the moment, but we can do better. And so we're making some improvements there. We've also come up with a staff and student password recovery and reset portal. One of the problems in maintaining security is during the pandemic, if everyone is remote, then they don't have the ability to actually come into the district and change their password. Now things have changed a bit, but we still have places like Digital Academy where kids are mostly not at school. We still have summertime when teachers are off and can't necessarily come into the campus. So this actually just gives us a portal available on the internet where people can manage their passwords. And having that available essentially makes our accounts more secure because people have that option to manage their passwords that way. We also maintain and provide support for all existing and new technology, hardware, and application platforms. The emphasis of that particular statement is that our curriculum is bringing in new applications every year, whether it's career orientation, mathematics, reading, curriculum, et cetera, et cetera. These are multiplying from year to year. And so that's an increasingly important part of the job that we do to support those. And under general maintenance and optimization here, finally, we will be doing upgrades to our district firewall. We have multiple sites that we will be doing network upgrades to. Many of them have reached almost the 15-year point. So I see us going through a new cycle of revamping, rewiring, recabling a lot of the networks, retooling in terms of our Wi-Fi networks, and basically going to the next level with higher and higher speeds as the demand has increased. So basically just keeping up with the times. We will be doing some security training, improvements in user security as well, as I've already touched on, and maintaining all aspects of existing one-to-one device to student program. And then offering continued support for access control for the IP cameras, net-based intercom, classroom audio, and potential video enhancements as well. So that's pretty much what's on the horizon. And, you know, I just want to, again, comment on our staff in the tech department that we have one of the best tech departments in the state of Mexico. Maybe I'm a little bit biased. I haven't done a survey, but I feel like we're really firing on all cylinders and we're getting the job done, and those guys are greatly appreciated. So we'll have a meeting in the morning and I'll tell them exactly what I said here. But with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Good, I want to thank you because most of the stuff you do is behind the scenes. People accomplish a lot of learning and they don't appreciate where that capability comes from. So you do a terrific job. You've never let us down. We were the first ones ready for COVID, and you continue to stay ahead of the curve. So, and you're right, these gentlemen plus Brian do a tremendous job. And I applaud them as well, but your entire department. So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you also. I think it's going to be a good move. Get rid of them smart boards too. They're a mess.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I do want to mention that right at the beginning of COVID, we were there, we were ready to go. And you saw in the news, so many districts were just scrambling for what to do, and we were leading the way. So good job.
Mr. Hill, go ahead.
I remember that March of 20. And all of a sudden, poof, we looked really good. And you guys are the ones that made us look good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just go with your letting the staff know that I agree with you. You have the best in the district, the whole state. Our district is the best in the state. How's that? And thank you again for all the work you guys do behind the scenes. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, so I believe we're under new business. Is there any board member requests for topics on the upcoming board meeting or work sessions that you would like me to add to the agenda? You can throw out some suggestions now, or what would you like to see on the next agendas? Get some human crickets. Okay, well, I'm sure we'll come up with plenty of things on our agendas. Okay, so if there is a topic that you have in mind, please reach out to me as soon as possible. At this time, I'm going to go to the announcement of meetings as allowed by the Opens Meeting Act and the District Open Meetings Resolution. On occasion, a quorum of board members attend the same function, including those held at school sites, district level, as well as sports functions and community activities. Board members will refrain from discussing and or acting on behalf of the Los Angeles School Board of Education issues in those settings. In addition, only official meetings are published, and if other meetings are scheduled, they will be announced in accordance with the Opens Meeting Act. With that having been said, I would like to announce the following meetings. On September the 19th of 2023, there will be a Finance Committee meeting here in the Central Office Boardroom at 3 p.m. On that same day, September 19, 2023, there'll be an Audit Committee meeting here at Central Office Boardroom. That is by attendance and invitation only. That will begin at 4 p.m. On September the 26th, there will be a board work session. This will be here at the Central Office Boardroom. These are for discussions that are going to be topics of board priorities, tools and process for the superintendent evaluation. This will begin at 2 p.m. and a quorum will be in attendance. And on September the 26th in the evening, same day here at Central Office Boardroom will be a regular board meeting beginning at 6 o'clock p.m. This leads us to adjournment of the meeting. Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Madam President, on the 19th, we are going to be having a special board meeting after the audit committee
And I
at 5 o'clock.
So there will be a special board meeting on September the 19th following the audit committee meeting, and that will begin at 6 p.m., 5 p.m.
5 p.m.
5 p.m. Okay.
Also on the 26th, the board work session will start at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, I think I said that.
Okay.
I think I
Thank you.
corrected that one, but I forgot to add in the meeting on the 19th for a special meeting. All right, board members, mark your calendars, because those are all important dates. Again, that leads us to the adjournment of the meeting. And before I call for a motion to adjourn, I don't think we have anything to sign. We do have things to sign. So please don't leave until you make sure you're not signing things. For that, I'll move for the adjournment. Who wants to give me the motion? Mr. Bennett gives me a motion for adjournment. Who will give me the second?
I will second that.
Mr. Vickers will second the adjournment. Any discussion on adjournment? Not hearing any. Mr. Hedon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah.
And I too vote yes, and it is now 8:45, meeting adjourned.